Good afternoon, YouTube people. I just made one of these Ford Duraspark ignition adapters for a DeLorean owner. And before I box it up and mail it off to him, I thought I'd make a video just so I could show you all how I make these things. What this is, this adapter allows you to attach a Ford Duraspark ignition module to your DeLorean without making any modifications or changes to the car. It's just a plug and play adapter that in there plugs into your DeLorean wiring harness, and then these here are just standard Ford Duraspark module connectors. But anyway, this is how I make the things. I start with a Bosch ignition module, and take it apart. And these pins here, I remove them from the circuit board, and that's what I use to make the end that attaches to the DeLorean wiring harness. And then I make a little plastic plate here that's got holes drilled in it that the wires will pass through, and that just kind of reinforces everything together. And then you run the wires through the holes and solder them to the pins that you cut off the circuit board. And then the last thing I do is I pot everything in silicone. Seals everything up, keeps it watertight and nice and sealed up. So that's how you make it. It's not terribly complicated. And let me plug this thing into the car and you can see it in action. Alright, as I've said in other videos, this here is a Ford Duraspark ignition module. This was Ford's only ignition module for about 15 years, and then they continued to use it up into the early 90s on their commercial vehicles. I have a 1989 school bus, and it has one of these things bolted to its core support. So they're very, very common. If you go to any parts house, any AutoZone, Advance, Pep Boys, O'Reilly, Napa, they're going to have a couple of these things sitting on the shelf. And they're also very affordable. Cost about $20. If you contrast that with a Bosch module, which costs several $100s and is not a stock item at any parts house, you can see why I like to use them. But as I was saying, this is the adapter plugged into my DeLorean wiring harness. You just unplug the Bosch module. In fact, my Bosch module is still underneath this plate. It still works, thank you very much. I guess if I ever had to, I could unplug my Duraspark module, plug the Bosch module back up, and continue driving on that. But you plug the adapter into the wiring harness, unplug the wiring harness from the Bosch module, plug the adapter in, and then on the other end are your Duraspark connectors that connect to the Duraspark module. And let me real quickly say something about this wire here. The Duraspark module has the ability to increase dwell time during the starting cycle. Ford does that because while you're starting the engine, voltage into the coil is reduced. So to compensate, they increase dwell time. It's kind of a neat little feature that Bosch module doesn't have. You don't have to have this connected. In fact, to be honest with you, I think Farrer and I are the only two people that have it connected. Everybody else is just driving around with it disconnected. But if you want to connect it, it's really simple. I'll show you how I have mine connected. It's really, really simple. But the car will start and drive just fine without it. There you go. DeLorean running on Ford ignition. Every module gets test driven on my car, or every adapter I should say, gets test driven on my car just to make sure I soldered it up correctly. But if you want to connect the module to the starting circuit, what I do, there's a red wire here that runs behind the bulkhead to the relay compartment. Has a female quick connect on this end here that plugs into the wire there. I don't know if I can do this with one hand. I don't think I'm going to be able to plug it in with one hand, but that would plug in there. Then the wire runs behind the bulkhead to the relay compartment. See if the door wants to stay open in the cold. Yay! So here's that wire coming from the module, and then this here is your hot start relay socket, which ordinarily is not used. It just lays loose in the back of your relay compartment. So I put a male quick connect on the end of the wire, plug it into the socket. Red and white is your starting signal, and that allows you to then very easily connect your Duraspark module to your starting circuit. Isn't it nice when your DeLorean starts? Actually, you know why my DeLorean starts. This is a carb conversion that I put on here to test drive for somebody way back in the fall. And I can't remember who the person is. I've been test driving your carb conversion for like 3 or 4 months now. Whoever you are, if you're watching this video and you still want your carb conversion, I have test driven the shit out of it. And it drives just fine. So, Ford carburetor, Ford ignition. That's why the damn thing runs.